Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm here with the deans of our 4 schools from LUMS to talk about our undergraduate programs. So I'll begin with the dean of the law school, Sadaf. Thank you for being here. Could you tell us something about your undergrad program at the law school?
Sure. So our school has only run an undergraduate program to this date. We're thinking about and hopeful of expanding into graduate programming. But it is our, signature program has been the BA LLB program, which was actually conceptualized and delivered by our law faculty as the first of its kind in Pakistan. It's loosely modeled on programs that exist across the region. It's been a 5-year program and it incorporates broad, vast liberal arts education along with a rigorous legal education, a professional legal education.
So that's different from the regular law-focused programs.
There's no sacrifice of legal rigor insofar as we deliver all of the fundamental foundational law courses, and in fact we expand into teaching quite detailed higher level electives which are primarily law focused. The difference might be in how we teach law, the questions that we pose for students in terms of how to assess legal regulations, legislation, case law and the like, in terms of the distributional impact, its historicity, things of that sort. So we're broadly interdisciplinary in how we teach law, and we have always had a kind of social justice orientation in our teaching of law.
Great. Thank you, Sadaf. Ali, we turn to you next. Could you introduce your undergrad programs?
Yeah, so we are a very large and varied school, which is primarily undergraduate and made up of 2 departments, economics and humanities and social sciences. And each of the departments gives a number of undergraduate programs. For humanities and social sciences, you have English, you have history, you've got comparative literature and creative arts. You also have anthropology and sociology, political science, and our latest one there was psychology. And then you move to economics, and then economics provides, of course, the economics degree by itself. Then they have joint degrees, economics and maths, economics and political science, and another new one, which is economics, data science, and computer science. So these are the majors, but we also have a number of minors. So we have a minor in environment, we have a minor in gender studies, and we have minors in religion and in philosophy, which are interdisciplinary. Beyond that, we have a school core, which is it's quite a strong school core, which makes our program really a liberal arts program, so that every student that comes into our school gets a broad foundation, which then allows them to have skills in digital as well as skills in good writing, critical thinking, so that they all, whether they're in history or whether they're in anthropology, will graduate with these very broad-based skills, which I think are important in today's very flexible world.
How exciting. Thank you. Walter, can we turn to you for the hard sciences, the School of Science and Engineering? Would you like to introduce your undergrad program?
Well, our undergraduate programs, they cover, as the name of the school suggests, both science and engineering. We have things which range from the most fundamental, mathematics, physics, chemistry, life sciences, also applied subjects such as computer science, chemical engineering and electrical engineering. And what is special about our school compared to most universities in Pakistan is that we give a grounding in all of the sciences and key elements of technology to all of our students. Because our belief is that LUMS is special, among other things, because it trains leaders. And what is special about the graduates that come out from SSE is that they are leaders who actually know how things work. Now, that can be maybe the universe if you're a physicist, or it could be something like knowing how an app works. But being able to think critically and lead, and at the same time, actually knowing how real things work, that's special.
Thank you. So do we turn to the last, but not the least, the business school? Yes, the first school, you may say.
Yeah, but so our school is the oldest school at LUMS, but the undergraduate program started much later. I think the undergraduate program started about 20 plus years back. So we have two majors right now, accounting and finance and management science. Accounting and finance is, in terms of its foundation, very functionally sort of focused. The great thing about the accounting and finance major is that we have very well established sort of industry connections and partners. And what happens by the time you graduate is that a lot of our courses are recognized by the ACCA, and so students are fast tracked to get both a degree qualification and a practical certifications, the ones that choose to go down that path. The management science major is the younger sort of major, and this was started about 13 years ago when I think when most people in the universities in Pakistan at least were not talking about data science or data-driven decision making and so on. So the term management science was in some sense a catch-all sort of expression that you'd get a business foundation, but we will give you a repertoire of skills which you can use to understand any problem within a business function using both quantitative and qualitative data. We'll give you those sort of expertise to be able to do that. So I think in that sense, for the longest time, the undergrad program has sort of continued to offer just these two majors, but by virtue of the fact that we are part of LUMS, our students then take a combination of either minors or majors with other schools. So for example, there are a lot of students who will do a minor in computer science or a minor in some of the social science disciplines, because we are in a position to offer that experience that very few universities in the country can, that you don't sort of limit yourself to a particular discipline, and you have an opportunity under the same roof to expose yourself to so many different ideas and people. So I think the business school or any of the other schools would be a great place for you to start your journey.
So says an undergrad from LUMS.
Yes, my undergrad was a long time ago, but we weren't the School of Science and Engineering back then. I joke about that with Walter, but so yeah, it was computer science, and I think even back then the spirit of sort of taking courses from across various disciplines, that was embedded in the ethos of LUMS School of Arts and Sciences. I think that was the idea that you develop a broad-based education, and you don't just limit yourself to computer science or economics or law or whatever.
So I would like to hear from the rest of the deans about this idea of interdisciplinarity. What does it really mean at LUMS for an undergrad?
The notion of interdisciplinarity is really operationalized, I think, across the schools in the idea that the big problems in the world require people to think along many different dimensions and be informed by different bodies of research and different ways of approaching that problem. So that certainly is a kind of driving force in how we approach law internally within our mapping of the curriculum, but also insofar as students can go across to other schools and pick up ways of knowing and approaching problematics, doing the diagnosis and the prognosis from these different perspectives, and then incorporating them into mechanisms for change, for redressal through the law, right? So also incorporating those kind of professional skills that they develop, because that, of course, is an operational field in and of itself. So I think recognizing that, so that's one way, I think, in a kind of, proactive, action-oriented way in which interdisciplinarity manifests itself. But I think obviously also, in a kind of more scholarly way, there are other elements of that, and perhaps, the other deans might want to speak to that.
I entirely agree with what Sadaf has said. Interdisciplinarity really lies at the heart of our understanding what are now really quite complex problems that come up. And I think we need to look at them in a variety of different ways. And I think in our school, certainly, you have different levels of interdisciplinarity. So if you take a major like anthropology and sociology, it's already interdisciplinary because you've got two disciplines that are coming together. But beyond that, even within the major, we are now incorporating, urban issues. We're incorporating gender. We're incorporating the environment. So it becomes, as a result, really quite interdisciplinary. it also, I think, in many ways sets our programs apart from what you see in a lot of other universities. So the psychology major that we launched just recently is a psychology major, but it draws very heavily on the humanities as well. So, you find that it is anchored in humanities, which I think is important because, philosophy will be important in terms of ethics and, I think you need to know about your history as well. So that all comes together in that manner. I mentioned we have programs within the school that are interdisciplinary. So Econ Pol, which is often, clearly interdisciplinary. You've got those that go across schools as well. So we have got economics and mathematics, which goes with the SSE. And we also have,
you
of
mentioned
course,
already, the economics, data, and computer science.
and yes, that the latest one was the data science and computer science one with economics, which has been an extremely successful launch. And so we're working across schools, across departments, across the university itself. So really, I think interdisciplinarity is at the heart of our understanding of these issues, as I mentioned.
Thank you, Walter.
Interdisciplinarity has a particular meaning in the sciences and engineering because in those areas, some of the greatest breakthroughs have actually happened at the edges of traditional disciplines, rather right in the middle of them. And even if you think about developing new technologies for the future, if you are somebody specializing in artificial intelligence, well, that's great. But if you don't know something about the problems of the world to which it could actually be applied, what really is the point? So, for example, sometimes our students say, why do I have to study biology? I'm only interested in mathematics or computer science. Well, we say to them, for example, if you want to develop an app, some of the most exciting opportunities are when you apply artificial intelligence to problems in health science. And as my colleagues have said, it's a very important component of the LUMS education that you're not restricted just to one school. I personally think that if you are a scientist or an engineer, sure, that's the most important thing. But if you don't know how to actually interact with people, if our students haven't got a broad-based cultural background from the humanities, from business, from law, they are going to be quite dangerous people. So we really think that it's an important feature of our whole education, interdisciplinarity.
And if I could just add, one of the things that I forgot to mention is also the issue of research. I think we're doing more and more interdisciplinary research as well now. And one example is the digitizing of archives and of monuments and artifacts that we've done with the computer science department and the history departments. And that is very exciting. And I think that, when your students see something like that, it promotes that feeling of, understanding from two different fields. So I think, research is also important.
And some of the things we do on topics like electric vehicles or the infamous Lahore smog, that is research which is very interesting from a scientific perspective, but again, it has relatively little application unless you talk to people who know how to transform that into policy decisions. So the research, as you said, is also very interdisciplinary.
Yeah, so I think I just quickly want to touch on that point about interdisciplinarity. I think, so we've had people sort of talk about it from different angles. I loved how Sadaf sort of talked about it, that look, if you look at the real world problems, they don't present themselves as functional area problems or domain discipline problems. They present as real problems, which means there are people involved, there are issues involved. And when you approach them, I think what the other deans are really talking about is the fact that we offer you different lenses to be able to look at the same problem. And in many cases, in many complex problems, you have to be able to pick up those different lenses. One of the things that I'm asking or I'm pushing my faculty more, or I will be doing more and more, is that I want them to reimagine what a business school classroom looks like. What does learning look like? In the age of AI and Gen AI and access to all of these different. So I think one of the visions is that we offer a transformative learning experience within the classroom. Now that means, what do we do in the classroom? What do we do outside of the classroom? How do we evaluate them? What are we really equipping them with over a 4-year period? because by the time they get out, by the time they graduate and go in the market, we don't know what new tools or ideas or technologies are going to be there. So I think, if anything, with these new advancements, one of the things that worries me is, which I've made a focus of the new direction, is how do we re-evaluate learning in the classroom, in the physical classroom or the hybrid classroom. So that's one area. The other two areas are, again, sort of in some sense going back to the roots of how the school began. The second area is, how well are we connected with the outside world? And that sort of speaks both with the other schools within LUMS and within the country as well. So one of the things that I'm fond of saying among the faculty discussions is that I would like the business school to be part of in terms of shaping the most important conversations in the country, whether that's environment and sustainability, and if you look locally, the smog issue. Our ability to be able to do the kind of research that matters, and to be able to talk to companies that are involved, or government departments or private sector organizations who are involved in these conversations, how are we sort of speaking with them? So my vision is that we should be the convening place for ideas and people and organizations that can help shape these conversations. That's what I want the business school to become. And then the third thing is that it's sort of linked to the second point, which is that our scholarship needs to be more relevant and practical.
Why is that relevant to an undergrad student?
Because I think what happens is that when these students go out, if they have been taught by faculty, or if they have been exposed to cutting edge ideas, whether in the business school or in the law school or in humanities, I would imagine that their ability to connect with and look at those problems, look at those organizations will be very different. They will be better equipped to look at them. That's why I think that it's a misplaced kind of an idea to say that scholarship would only be relevant for graduate or postgraduate programs. I think faculty who are engaged in research, in relevant, impactful research that matters to the society, looking at the problems that matter, they'll be able to educate and excite students very differently. And so these are three areas which I am beginning to sort of have a conversation with my faculty, and I'm hoping that they will, enthusiastically take them on.
Can we shift gears a little and talk about your particular visions for your school?
I think that a vision emerges collectively from the people who run an institution or are part of the institution. So a lot of the inspiration for where we're going with the law school is when we see our graduates out in the field and the kind of cases they take on, where they situate themselves in fields of practice, in other organizations and the like. And we have a really wonderful set of alumni out there doing really important work, right? Doing work to, increase protection vis-a-vis natural resources, increase protection for labor, to advance protections against for women against violence. So all of these things our students or our graduates have taken on with a certain kind of fervor and with a certain impact, which has really been remarkable. So I think to maintain that is one thing into the future. But going back to what Adil was saying, I think one of the things is really to keep pace with, to engage in that kind of, for faculty, for all of us to engage in that kind of grounds up learning of how these varied technologies are impacting learning. And we see it all the time. So I'll just, as an example, the reason our graduates, one of the primary reasons why our graduates have had such success is because we have inculcated in them not only an ability to read cases and to read them critically and to discern, fact from principle, all of these things which are a part of legal method, but also to actively engage with legal research themselves, right? For putting together effective cases and the like. And also, the interdisciplinarity is a part of that, because both in terms of addressing and discerning, the multiplice dimensions of a legal issue, are knowing who to speak to and how to speak to them in different languages that they can engage in. But again, so questions, particularly AI and its intrusion into the classroom. So if legal research and writing was, a primary method through which we inculcated other skills, what does it mean when in fact AI is now being used to draft contracts across the world or to, put together case briefs and the like? So what are we left with in that? But I still think that there is, and the discernment of that and the understanding of what, aspects of those methods can we still carry over into and inculcate among students is one of those challenges that we have, which is a part of the vision for the future. The other thing is that, an advance we've made over the last couple of years is in experiential learning. And particularly, we have introduced legal clinics where, we are either taking, students are helping in the preparation of cases, live cases. So these are kind of live intake, albeit by referral cases, or, they are going and imparting civics education, legal education, either in low-income schools or in prisons across Punjab. So these kinds of experiential learning, experiences that students have, this is something that we want to expand, and this becomes another method by which both community impact is being felt, other than in the conventional ways of, through legal practice. And so this is a part of, I think that represents a part of the broader kind of collective vision of our school for the next few years.
Thank you. Ali, do you want to talk about the vision of your school and how some of these ideas resonate with you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely think that a lot of the ideas will overlap. But, the vision, I think, for our school is that our students need to understand the country. They need to understand the major problems that we face, whether it is, the economy, whether it's climate change, whether it's terrorism, whether it is how Pakistan is represented globally, whether it's inequality, other issues that Sadaf also mentioned. So, I want our students to be able to understand those, to have a nuanced understanding of them, to engage with them, and to therefore have the tools to be able to bring about some positive change. And clearly, if you're going to do this, we must understand that it will require critical thinking, because the solutions that we have looked at in the past are clearly not the ones that are working. And it is this generation, a new generation, that will have to find ways, creative ways, innovative ways in which to sort of come up with solutions to the problems that are holding us back. So that, we develop students from our programs who are ethical, who are responsible, who are, citizens globally as well as locally. And I think without doing that, the mission of a university is not complete.
Okay, a vision is a very personal thing. So for me, the key thing is that LUMS is a very exciting place, actually. And I would say that the School of Science and Engineering is a particularly exciting place. Why would I say that? I think because, yes, there are a lot of things going wrong with the world at the moment, but there are a lot of very interesting things happening as well. In the area of science and technology, you only have to look at artificial intelligence, quantum technology. There are a whole lot of really exciting developments, and the School of Science and Engineering researchers there are playing a part in the development of the new technologies. They are also transmitting knowledge of them to the next generation. So I think my vision of the school, and I say that's a very personal vision, is it's a place in which everyone shares this excitement. And the excitement can come from teaching and learning. And by the way, when I talk about teaching and learning, I think all of us would agree that the people who do the learning certainly are not restricted to the students. One of the great things about being an academic is that you are continually learning. So we hope that our teaching and learning will inspire people. The research, we hope that people will share the excitement of that. And something else which is very important and is the more social aspect is the outreach. Some of our faculty, for example, in the math department, they really have very good outreach programs to convey the excitement. And what the math faculty do is they go out to schools and they actually show even primary school kids that really exciting problems, fundamentally, they're just examples of mathematics. So for me, the key is excitement. Solve problems of the world, but enjoy doing so.
So Ali, I turn to you first about what can a student from your school upon graduation expect to do? What kind of a life?
A life that makes a big change.
Right.
So,
but a life that can also sustain itself and others around it?
Look, I think one of the biggest myths that we face, particularly in humanities and social sciences, is that, this is a degree, an undergraduate degree is a professional degree. And if I do history, for example, I can only become a historian and become an academic, and same for other areas. But the fact of the matter is that apart from the engineering school, which is a little different, the rest of us are all providing our students with what we refer to now are transferable skills, right? And you can get those skills from any major, right? Be it accounting, be it English, be it anthropology, be it economics. But we want our students to have a range of skills that they can use in the workplace. Now, those skills are going to include things like and this may seem self-evident, but good writing skills, which are actually less and less common these days. The ability to, analytical skills. You want critical thinking. I've mentioned that. You want the ability to, self-leadership, to be able to lead yourself in particular situations. You want to be able to work under pressure. You want to be able to present yourself well. And I can go on about these, but these are skills that I think the marketplace requires. And there's no reason why you can't get this from history or from English or from anthropology or economics. So it is these skills that we will equip our students with. And included in that will be, to be ethical and responsible citizens. If you don't have these, then I don't see which workplace you're going to end up in, right? So I think if you have these skills, any person is going to be willing to take you on. So it's not the content of the major. No one is going to ask you, what did you do in Econ 100? They're going to look at whether you have these skills available. And I'm confident that this is what we are equipping our students with today.
And I've heard you speak at another forum that you actually have some evidence that employers don't look particularly for a particular degree. They look at...
Yeah, I mean, we have a careers document as well, and we looked at, what employers want worldwide and did a whole survey of that. And amongst the least important is what your major is, right? I mean, you want things like emotional intelligence. You want the ability to work with others. You want sort of cultural knowledge. You need to know, you need to be a global citizen. If you don't have these things today, then, you could be in any field and still not be successful in it. And yes, the data that we have shows that there is no real difference between the majors in terms of how quickly you get employed. That is not going to be the issue. So, I mean, the advice really is do what you feel you want to do, that you have a passion for it. I think, if I was in the position of an employer, I would always hire that person that shows commitment, that shows passion for something, rather than someone who, may be extremely well-versed in a certain area, but doesn't show that.
Thank you. Walter, could we move on to you about this question of...
I think it is a myth to think that science and engineering is not about transferable skills. Yes, it is true that we've got courses like chemical engineering and electrical engineering, which are accredited by the Pakistan Engineering Council. That means that they do provide a really top quality vocational education. But at the same time as learning what you need for a profession, you are also learning to think critically, to deal with problems, to think way outside what you just learn for that particular profession. And the School of Science and Engineering includes subjects like physics. That's my own subject. People say, why would you study physics? I mean, the only thing you can do with that is become a teacher. I would say, first of all, becoming a teacher actually isn't a bad thing. I like being a teacher. It's a very respectable and very important profession. But to say that you're restricted to one profession is just crazy. People who study physics and any of the other hard sciences, they can do almost anything because they have got really good ability to think critically, and they can put their critical analysis of a problem into numbers. And very often that is extremely important. So many physicists will go into finance, chemists can go into all sorts of areas. So the really key thing is exactly what you did say, and I'm agreeing with you completely on this. The major itself is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to do what you are really interested in. And I looked at the data which was given to us about the most recent graduates from the School of Science and Engineering, and what proportion of them found places in higher education beyond the undergraduates and in industry or other forms of employment. And the percentage that found placements, it was almost exactly the same for all the subjects. You might think that because computer science is the flavor of the moment, and it's a great subject, don't get me wrong, it's not only interesting because of what you can do with it to solve problems that are interesting to employers, but it is intellectually really challenging. But that's not the only subject that has got a high placement record. For mathematics, physics, all these other subjects, it's also very, very high. The days of saying, I've done a degree in this, I'm going to make my career based on it, it's gone. I'm quite fortunate, or unfortunate, some of you may say, that I've spent now 35 years as an academic. The number of people who are going to be able to spend 35 years in the same profession in the future is going to be very small. So you need an education which teaches you to be flexible, think critically, do things like that. And whether it's in humanities, whether it is in science and engineering, law, business school, the LUMS education gives you that.
Thank you. Sala.
So what's coming to mind, one of my favorite, a student that was very highly regarded, he's a stand-up comic from the law school, and he runs a podcast, a very well-known one, shout out to Shahzad Ghias. He's a graduate of our school. But along with him, there are musicians, there are people who have taken very diverse life courses from staying within what we regard as conventional law practice. But then again, we don't also train our students, even for those who want to steer a kind of more linear course and retain some kind of relationship with the law, only to have, what we would regard as a conventional legal practice. They're advisors to government regulatory agencies. They often get picked up by companies to, go through their management training programs and the like. At a later stage, usually of their careers, after they've had some years in practice, they may be, again, employed as in-house counsel. A lot of our students, again, and I'm trying to stay clear from, only mentioning those students who have an intersection with kind of advocacy, social rights advocacy, but I think in that domain, some of the primary researchers for the largest human rights, organizations in the world, whether it's Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, International Commission for Jurists, our graduates have gone on to be either regional advisors or researchers or, incorporated within those organizations. So there's a whole diverse, set of things. And again, without dilating on them, the things that both Ali and Walter have said so far, the ability to think deeply, and to actually passionately engage with different domains of learning is probably what gives rise to that plurality, and that not just, so it's the durability of those skills, but then it's also a flexibility and intellectual dexterity. And I think that's very important, and that comes from a deep engagement, and dedication and passion and all of these things that were mentioned earlier in these 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The business school.
In our school, what they generally, what a lot of the kids and parents sort of talk about is that, what kind of a job will our child be able to get? Will they be able to sort of become entrepreneurs? Again, there is a lot of sort of old mythical sort of ideas that, they don't teach entrepreneurship. But then if you look at our alumni body, we boast some very remarkable entrepreneurs who have done really well with both within the country and outside of the country. So I think I'd say that if you look at it across spectrum, there's one part of the answer. I think both in terms of opportunities within the industry in Pakistan, outside of Pakistan, we have had undergrad students who regularly get sort of placed outside as well, right after the undergrad. So I think in terms of job opportunities, it's not a problem. Also in terms of sort of entrepreneurially starting up something on their own, there are tons of examples where a lot of our kids are able to do that. But I'd actually sort of frame it a little differently. I think if you look at the undergrads that we get supposedly we are getting the intellectual cream of the country if you look at this age bracket. We are picking a very small number if you look at the country. So I think I would actually, when I speak with a lot of the students, I don't tell them to think about what career options they will have 4 years from now. I think if you work really hard, you're deeply committed, things that Sadaf was sort of talking about, I think you will get that regardless of which school you go into. But I think what really matters is that you come out of the school as somebody whose orientation is that what can I do for others? And I don't mean that trivially, because I think a job, and I don't want to name universities, but you can get a job if you graduate and you're a good student from any other university and some of our competitor universities as well. You'd be able to get a job. And if you work hard, you'd be able to get somewhere, I'm sure. But I think what we offer under the same roof is, I'm hoping, an exposure to ideas and people and organizations which changes your mindset. That, it is not just about what you can get out of life. I want my kids to be able to take courses in humanities and SSC and in the law school or the school of education when they open up to that point. But I want them to open up that sort of horizon, because I think it is in some sense a responsibility of the students we are training to look beyond themselves and the opportunities that this degree will afford them.
So Ali, how about your school, faculty in your school?
Yeah, I think this is actually quite easy for us because in our case, almost the entire faculty is educated, abroad in the United Kingdom, in the United States, other international universities. But our work is nearly entirely focused on Pakistan, which is why so many of them come back to contribute to the growth of this department and this school. So in the case of the Gurmani school, I've been here 20 years and I've seen in that 20 years the growth of the numbers in here in this school from, single figures to being over 60, 65 PhDs in that space of time. So a very large growth of faculty. And particularly in the last 5 years or so, what has happened is that we've gained a lot of research momentum. To such an extent, I think, that, I can, with some confidence, state that, even looking globally, there is no school that produces the same quantity or quality of work pertaining to Pakistan in the humanities and social sciences as we are currently doing. The quality is outstanding, but we are also producing a lot of work. So there are books, there are research articles, there are interdisciplinary works that are going on, there are projects that are happening. So the school has really, I think, gained an international recognition for the research, and that's all down to the faculty that is now at this school.
So, but LUMS is not a teaching college, it's a research university, and yet teaching is one of our main unique selling points. So how would the student experience be affected by this rich research?
I have a very old-fashioned view of a university. I really believe that a university is a community of scholars, and that includes scholars who are developing new knowledge, the researchers, but also the scholars who are inspiring them, the ones who are picking up on that knowledge. So I think it's absolutely intricately linked. I don't think that a true university can be teaching only, in inverted commas. The research is really necessary. It creates the atmosphere, as I said before, of excitement in the university.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that. I mean, I think we are in the business of creating knowledge, and good teaching will always require that knowledge is new. So, I mean, when you're working on new research or cutting edge research, that is what is then being passed on to your students. So I think that the division is also a little artificial, that, teaching or research. I think both of them are going to, contribute to one another. When you create a course, you learn a lot about what you're teaching. That feeds into your research. When you do your research, that inevitably will inform your teaching as well. So I think that, the two really work with one another.
What about in law?
So let me, so the origins of the law school as such, that we started a program with what was at that point a very small faculty, but we had to create the tools to learn with. So law is, to that point in Pakistan, the teaching of law had really stagnated, right? So most legal educational institutions were only teaching just bare statutes, not even case law. There were no compendiums of case law. So, there was no way to know effectively what the state of law was in a particular area without us undertaking that initial research. And putting together those teaching materials. So, I think we've been, pretty open about sharing those materials, but also those materials have then informed, the publication of more scholarly articles where we draw upon other interdisciplinary perspectives to understand legal transformations and evolutions within Pakistan, as well as to compare across jurisdictions, as well as to draw upon other, levels of legality, whether those be international legal norms and customs and the like. So we're very proud of the fact that, we are one of the few legal education institutions still in Pakistan where effectively those scholarly articles and books and the like are being, they're being disseminated and used as teaching resources, not only for the teaching of Pakistani law within Pakistan, but also across the world, right? There's more recognition of developments that are taking place here. There's a greater dissemination of that through this kind of research and those kinds of networks. So the faculty and its development and its willingness and capacity to kind of sort of meet the challenges of this still somewhat underdeveloped sphere in Pakistan is really indicative of how these things are integrated, really effective teaching as well as research.
Thank you.
Where's the school? Yeah, so I think in our school, just like Adi was sort of talking about, I think we have a lot of faculty with PhDs or different qualifications from across the world. I think that mix is there, just like in other schools. I think what's also interesting is that we have people like the law school, we have people coming from the industry. So we have who are working in the industry and then teaching with us in our program, undergrad and graduate programs. I think what I have particularly liked about some of our faculty members and the mix that we have is that many of them are into different businesses as well, in the sense they are entrepreneurs themselves. So I mean, there are some who are running either clothing businesses or in the food business or bookstores. And I think what that does is that when they come in the classroom, I think their ability to look at problems across different functional boundaries and disciplines, that conversation naturally comes into the classroom. And I think I particularly value that in our faculty, that they not one looks like the other in terms of the richness that they bring in. But I think that to Walter's point, that is what a university is, right? Right, a community of scholars or people who are, if you, depending on how you look at them, exceptional scholars who produce new knowledge, exceptional teachers who will change and literally, transform the lives of students. I remember, without taking the name of the faculty member, there was one particular one who mentored, and when the student got married, on the RSVP on his card, there was just the name of that faculty member, no other family member. So I mean, I think that mix exists, and I'm sure it exists with other schools, faculty as well. But I think within the business school, this idea that many of them are running businesses, were distributors, or ran companies for different distributors and so on. So I think the conversation, the local conversation that comes into the classroom just by them being there, is a great experience. I'd say, I'd go so far as to say I'd love to be a student in a lot of their classrooms, because you'd get an opportunity to learn from them, which would otherwise not be possible.
Thank you. I think it would be fair to say that after 4, or in your case 5 years, the student that enters is so transformed that they wouldn't recognize themselves if they were to see themselves 4 years or 5 years into the future. But what we can end by asking the deans for their parting advice. What would be your advice to applicants and families that are applying to each of your schools?
Well, I think we've already heard it. The advice is do what you're interested in. Choose a subject that excites you. Even if you look at it from a purely pragmatic point of view, there is no point in studying a subject which you find boring but you think will get you a job, because try as you like, you're not going to do very well at it. And if you come out of university with a fairly poor grade point average in a subject which is supposed to give you a great job, that is so much worse than coming out with a high grade point average in theoretical physics, for example. So do what you're passionate about.
Thank you.
I think that it's a very rare thing that we all agree on something, but I am going to venture forward and say that this is something we do agree upon, that the worst thing you can do is to choose a major that was not of your choice. And I've seen a lot of heartache from students who've done that, because as Walter was saying, what tends to happen is you go into a subject that you don't have an aptitude for, or you're not particularly good at, you don't enjoy it, and you're going to be ending up with a kind of mediocre degree. So why be a mediocre economist when you could have been, an outstanding historian, for all the reasons that we've been talking about already. So that is always the biggest mistake. You need to see what it is that fires your imagination, and you need to go for that. I mean, these are 4 years of your life which are not going to come back. 5 years or 4 years of your life are not going to come back. I probably shouldn't say this, but I am going to say it in the sense that this is not the time to listen to what your elder brother was saying, or elder sister was saying, or what your parents were saying. This is a step into adulthood, and you need to be able to make your own decisions and stand by them. And I'm very confident that if you did do that, you can use it in any, when you go for an interview, for example. I'd be interested in understanding why you chose history, rather than what degree you actually did. But if you can convince me that I had passion, enthusiasm, this is what really, drew my attention, I'd be happy to take you on.
So I think, both of those, contributions are effectively what I would say ditto to. And I will just say that it's very hard to predict at this stage, right? 20 years from now, what different professional fields, work fields are going to look like. And so basically you're carrying yourself into the future. And therefore your investment in your own passions and dedication is what is going to hold you in good stead. So again, figure that out. And if that requires a little bit of, searching around and trying different things, please do that. I would say, it's just that. It's that kind of authenticity and, listening to what it is that you want to do and then carrying it out, right? These are not simply ideas. there's an effort involved and engaged in that. And I think most of the students who come to LUMS, because they've worked hard at the school level, they just, they have those skills, but just be ready to build those up as well.
I'll second what the other dean said, but I think I'll just add that, now that at this point when you're applying, I think I'd say expose yourself as much as you can to what what the different schools are about, and I think as much as you can make an effort to find out what that passion is, because as when Ari was talking, one of the things I was thinking about is that because of our high schools and how we've sort of look at education now, I think a lot of the students don't get an opportunity to truly explore and discover what that passion is. I think it'll be the older brother or one of the parents who would have said, do this, I did this, it was good, and so I think maybe at this point, one of the things you ought to do is you try and absorb as much as you can about what the schools are about, where the students are going, where the alumni are going. I think where we say that there is a lot of information available on social media, a lot of it gets drowned out. So I think what I would like some of the applicants to do is to make a conscious effort to try and discover what the different schools are about.
Thank you very much for your time and for giving your time to our future applicants and their families. And we hope to see your applications soon.